Welcome to Strange Normal. My name is Brad Burnham. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what's going on. And boy, do we have a full night for you. 650 new UFOs, according to the government. NASA director is sworn in using Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot book. And a new UAP video is declassified. In fact, 2 of them. That's coming up. Now, before we get started, I want to introduce our guests tonight. Hello, guys. Welcome, welcome. Eric and Matthew, you've been on here before. How are you guys doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing great, Brad. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Very good.
How are you doing tonight, Brad?
You know, I'm doing better than I deserve, as a famous podcaster says that my wife listens to, probably more than I like to admit. We do renovations, and that's all we listen to. If you know who that is, it's a financial guru. I'll put it at that. But we're going to have a fantastic night tonight because we're going over something very interesting, and it's going to be rather revealing. Because if you haven't seen it already, which I hope most of you have, because I uploaded it, I think yesterday or the day before last, we had a hearing. The government had a hearing that was talking about the recent update. They have a yearly update for the public about what they have found, and what they have found is pretty bizarre. And so we're going to get into that a little bit further in just a second. But is there anything that you saw in the Discord today, that, or not today, but this week, that was fascinating to you? I'm going to put you guys on the spot for a second because there's so much going on in there that we can't get everything in there. So is there anything that comes to your head?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
of course.
Don't step on each other's toes, Eric. Please.
That's fine. No.
Oh, you want to hear from me?
No, I'm going. You blew it. Well, the shameless plug for the stuff, because I've been following the AI stuff, and there's been like Elon Musk's interviews, and actually Lex Friedman. I just linked it today. Lex Friedman interview with the guy who runs OpenAI, which is behind ChatGPT, and there's some fascinating little nuggets in there that I'm sure we could pick apart at a later time.
I'd love to get into AI. Yeah, what about you, Matthew? Do you have anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say I really like the new AI channel. So how it works on the Discord is we have a bunch of different channels, and that's how we kind of filter through the information, trying to keep it organized. So if there's a particular topic that you have an interest in, you can click on it. It's backlogged at this point pretty far, so you could entertain yourself with it for a while. But yeah, we have a newly created AI channel, and there's some really interesting stuff in there. The more I think we look at AI, the more we can determine that it'll be a part of the final deception. I don't know in what capacity quite yet, but it's something that I'm mulling over for sure. And
that's part of the Strange Normal research group. I mean, we're just researching and trying to figure out how is society today, how is the Bible actually talking about our current society today? I mean, that's basically it. Let's make it relevant. Let's understand exactly what's going on and talk about what the church isn't talking about. So that's it. I'm gonna plug that for a second. I didn't mean to cut you off, Matthew. Did I cut you off? Keep going.
No, Brad, please. You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, check this out. This is what we got going on. This is the Discord. You can become a part of the Discord by going patreon.com/strangenormal and be a part of this. I mean, there's so much going on here. This video is from a long time ago, and we still got so much happening. I mean, and more than just in here is in the channels. And if you don't know what Discord is, man, get with the times. I didn't know what it was, and I had to get one because this is where it's at. So much going on in real time, live. It's so neat to be a part of this. And you know what? One more thing before we get started. This is super important, guys. In fact, I pre-recorded something because it's so important. I wanted to say exactly how important it is. Without this function, we wouldn't have something tonight. What happened to Eric? Did he just disappear? Oh, welcome back, Eric. Without this function, we would have just absolutely not had a show tonight. And it's because I'm demoing or trialing some software right now that really helps us on the program. But I won't have it forever. And I'll tell you exactly why that's so important. Would you like to know?
I would.
I already know,
Brad.
but maybe the audience doesn't.
Here we go. This is fascinating. Watch this clip that I pre-recorded. Okay, so what if you knew there was a coming deception and you didn't know when it was going to occur? Would you want to monitor the media to know when exactly it was going to happen? What if you had the ability to monitor all national TV channels, local TV channels, satellite channels, radio stations, and podcasts all around the world without needing to watch hours and hours of TV every day to track the progress of the future deception? Would you do it? If you had this ability, would you want to have this superpower? Well, today this is possible, and I want to do this for you so that I can bring you all the latest news about this phenomenon. It's called broadcast search indexing, and it's how most news networks get their latest updates around the planet. And it's also how some large YouTube channels put together those collages of amazing content, such as the ones showing news organizations saying the exact same thing.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Or how the YouTube channel Jason A is putting together all those weather reports showing the incredible natural disasters that are occurring.
Scientists there say the frequency and severity of natural disasters seems to be increasing.
A record heat wave in Japan, major flooding in Australia, and a deadly avalanche in northern Italy.
Floods hit the country's largest city for the third time this year.
Also, extreme weather conditions have been slamming all parts of the world recently.
The way they find these clips is the same way you search Google, except they pay for a service that records every single channel there is and archives their closed captioning so that they can find specific keywords in videos. The catch? It costs a lot of money, $500 per month, to be able to search through thousands of TV stations, thousands of radio and satellite and podcasts, searching through their closed captioning files in near real time to find the latest stories for you. If this is something that you see as valuable to you, we need your help. We need to raise almost $5,000 in one-time donations or add about 25 Patreon members to our Scholar tier. To make this happen, for this month only, we will discount our access to our Discord research server where you can join and find the latest information and be up to date on the wildest content, some of which doesn't even get to be mentioned on our weekly show. And you can keep that discount for as long as you're with us. And this is for new members only. So to find that content for you, we need to use an expensive service called TV Eyes, which through the use of Fair Use, this Fair Use Act that we are able to push broadcast media to YouTube, we can bring those clips directly to you. Check out their commercial about monitoring Bigfoot.
Okay, let's say you're a PR pro and your client is Bigfoot. You know, Sasquatch. He wants the right mix of buzz and mystery, and you need a reliable way to show the fruits of your labor. Introducing TV Eyes, the easiest way to search, monitor, analyze, and report on global TV and radio mentions. Keep an eye on your coverage, industry topics, even competitors. From local news
We are at the Northwest Mall, where Bigfoot was spotted at the food court,
to national talk shows.
So tell us about your Bigfoot sighting on Sunset Boulevard.
To dramatic documentaries. Plus, easy to set up email notifications are a convenient way to stay on top of every mention as they happen. No matter what kind of clients you have, you'll know what's being said about them on TV and radio, so you can exceed expectations and prove the value of your efforts. TV Eyes is a powerful tool for research, crisis management, even media training.
This will also let us keep statistics on how fast the agenda is growing. Imagine being able to get the latest information without having to watch the depressing news. Help us reach our goal by donating to Strange Normal. If you have enjoyed our program so far, help us take it to the next level. With this new level of research potential, the limits are endless. Donation links will be in the bottom below. Thank you for your help, and God bless. Okay, so obviously we're going to use this service in order to look for the agenda and see how it's progressing with the UFO front, because it's I don't like looking through all this stuff. I mean, it's very difficult to find it on YouTube because you got to rely on other podcasters who've already found this stuff, and by the time you get it, it's already late. So if we could get this on time and quickly, we can get a lot more eyes, we can get a lot more viewers, and that's potentially reaching others with this message, and that's why it's so important. Rant over, commercial over, but I think it's very, very important that we go forward with this, because it's a huge deal. What do you guys think?
Did you notice the Masonic eye in their logo?
I did, yeah.
And,
yeah.
Scratch for the...
I mean, what are they doing? They're watching
something?
every single channel. Of course, they're going to show something, but we can use their service for good. I think we can do a good service.
It's white magic, huh, Brad?
No.
Yeah, of course.
No, I mean, TV necessarily. I mean, full disclosure. I don't know if everyone knows. These guys know this, but I work for a company called Little Light Studios, which is not associated with this channel, and we show how the evil is using television to forward its message. Absolutely. I'm working on a project right now. The current movie, I think, is Mario Brothers. It's going to gross to be $1 billion movie. It's ridiculous. And it's going to be quite surprising. But on their channel, we reveal that. But can't we use this for good? I think we can. And so that's kind of the goal here, is to, hey, let's make sure we reveal the deception and not reveal and not push the deception forward. So that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, certainly. We can use it for good, Brad, because I'll tell you what, we're on YouTube right now, and we're broadcasting through YouTube.
That's right.
And I got to say, I get some disgusting stuff recommended on the YouTube homepage. I mean, they're doing I think it's like after shows or after parties is what they're calling it, but it's like people release a new music video and then the artist, right? Can we even call them that at this point? It's just pretty disgusting what some of these people are getting up to, but
demonic conduits.
There was one that was especially in your face. But anyway, that's beside the point. Of course, we can use it for good. I just want to shout out Aaliyah in the chat. Had a really funny comment when that Bigfoot thing was playing. She said, "I can only imagine someone coming into this right now being like, what is Brad playing?"
I didn't realize you were going to play the whole thing.
Yeah, well, I'll probably upload just that segment later, but I thought, you know what, this would be a good place to throw it in, because this is where we get the most viewers too. And I just want to shout out our super chat, Ash. Thank you for your super chat. Very good. And any super chats, everything is welcome, because we run on fumes sometimes here, and we need all the help we can get. Let's get into our program. I think we got an amazing program tonight, and it's all about the Congress. Congress has got some crazy stuff going on. They did a whole hour special on this tonight. So let's look into what's happening. This is the intro. You ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go.
The recent downing of the Chinese surveillance balloon and 3 other objects underscores the need for domain awareness. Adversaries like China and Russia are working to hold U.S. interests, including our homeland, at risk. That's why your testimony is so important. And I so look forward to a progress update on the establishment of your office. As members know, your office evolved from the Navy-led Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force to the All-Domain Anomalous Resolution Office, known as AARO. Dr. Kirkpatrick, your extensive background in science and technology, research and development, and space makes you well-suited to discuss these emerging challenges. My priority is that we understand the full range of threats posed by our adversaries in all domains. That is what the Joint Force needs to be prepared to fight and win in defense of our nation. This committee needs to know about Chinese or Russian advanced technology programs to exploit our vulnerabilities. And it needs to know whether your office, along with the IC, has detected potential Chinese or Russian capabilities to surveil or attack us. Finally, we need to ensure efficient interagency coordination. Multiple elements of the DoD and IC own a piece of this mission. To add value, AARO's efforts cannot be redundant with others. Thank you again. We look forward to your testimony.
Okay, let's pause it right there for a second. That was the intro. Eric, not Eric, Sean. I don't know why, for some reason, Eric, you were all of a sudden in Congress there for a second. Sean Kirkpatrick, if that was the name correctly. Do I have that right, guys?
You got it right.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Bravo. You did it.
He apparently is either the spokesperson or he's the runner for AARO, which is the section that is looking into these UAPs right now. And they have some interesting statistics about this, and we're going to dive right into them right now. Unless you guys have some comments on that. There wasn't much to comment about, but that was what's happening and what's going on. Any comments?
You can't go back to the very end of that clip, can you?
Yeah. You want me to play it again? Just the last 20 seconds?
Well, we'll just freeze it, just to show the at the end where it shows the people in the room.
Yeah. Let me see if I can do that. Oh, just the people in the room. I think I can do that.
Yeah, it's like at the very end of the clip.
Oh man, no, I only got a few characters or a few frames of that last clip. Let me see if I can grab it. Oh, yeah, I can do it.
One.
There we go. I'm going to flip back there, and I'll flip back to you guys.
The recent downing of the Chinese surveillance balloon and three...
No, I can't go back and get it. But
okay, well maybe it'll come up again, I'm sure. But like, this is not like a committee with, there's like 2 senators in there. I don't know who the other woman at that big table is, and then there's this guy, the director of AARO. This is not like Senator Ted Cruz or Rand Paul, or I mean, I only know one of them by name, but I don't know anything about her, Senator Gillibrand. So I just thought that was interesting. Whenever they have a setting in like a room and it's like folding chairs or, stuff like that, not an official, what you would expect a Senate chamber to look like. That's where they put the AARO hearing. So that's just caught my eye.
I did too. I thought that was weird too, because I thought, well, this isn't the usual setting we see this in. It just looks like a smaller room that has very few people that are interested, and everyone else is out having lunch or something. It doesn't seem that anybody else is hardly here to watch, but hey, at least it's getting some publicity, and they provided a public link and a streaming link to it. So I think that's something, right? So we'll see. Here's the next clip. We're going to go right into Dr. Kirkpatrick and what he has to say about this. This is fascinating. Check this out.
I should also state clearly for the record that in our research, AARO has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known laws of physics. In the event sufficient scientific data were ever obtained that a UAP encountered can only be explained by extraterrestrial origin, we are committed to working with our interagency partners at NASA to appropriately inform U.S. government's leadership of its findings. For those few cases that have leaked to the public previously and subsequently commented on by the U.S. government, I encourage those who hold alternative theories or views to submit your research to credible peer-reviewed scientific journals. AARO is working very hard to do the same. That is how science works, not by blog or social media.
Not by blog or social media, except I think the funny thing about this whole thing is and I'm going to preface it with this, and I'll let you guys comment on it, but I believe in science. I believe that we should, and this is what I believe in, we should have a process that looks at facts, that goes through this stuff, absolutely, that doesn't have any bias on it. The problem is everybody has a bias. And so how you bring in that bias really depends on a few things. And before you make a comment, let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. For instance, what the bias is happening here. Do you see it? Look at this lady. What is she doing? This is one of the new directors. And I'm going to pause it right here. That is not what she's being sworn in as a new director. I don't have her. What is her name? Let me look up her name real quick. Her name is Dr. Mackenzie Listrup. She was sworn in as the new director of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center last week. And what is she sworn in on? She's sworn in on, that's Carl Sagan's A Pale Blue Dot. Carl Sagan's A Pale Blue Dot, which talks more about how we are a part of this universe that doesn't have God in it, basically. And I think that's fascinating that she was sworn in on this book instead of why be sworn in at all? That's if you're not what are you going to pray to Carl Sagan if you're going to have a if you're going to have trouble, you're going to pray to Carl Sagan to get you out of this stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I always thought that the Pale Blue Dot, I always thought that was an interesting title for the book, and it's also the name of an image that was supposedly taken by a satellite of Earth, and Earth is just this pale blue dot. That's the whole idea. I think that it's supposed to demoralize. The whole idea is that look how tiny we are, look how insignificant we are. And if you take the scripture, it totally flips that on its head. Because I believe it's in the Psalms where it talks about, it's like, what is man that like God takes such good care of us, that he is so invested in us. Whereas you have this pale blue dot, it's like, yeah, there's nothing really special about us. We could get wiped out in an instant. No one would care. No one would even know that we were here. That's kind of this whole weird idea. You see it a lot. This like nihilism and this just lessening of humanity. It's all come from, I think you could probably find its roots in evolution, because you go to evolution and that takes away the idea that we're made in the image of God. It lessens us. Suddenly we're just apes who happen to catch a lucky break, and now we're walking around chatting over the internet. But yeah, what it does is it makes you feel like, okay, we're not that important, we're not that special. And I think most people have that mentality at this point. Even people who would profess to be religious, maybe they have this mentality where it's like, oh, it does feel like we're so small and we're so tiny. And I think that does put us in a position where we're ripe for that deception, because then all of a sudden maybe you have an alien entity come in and say, hey, I want to tell you guys how special you are because we have been watching you. We have been caring for you this whole time.
Wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it opens the doors for these people who they have that absence of God, and all of a sudden it's like they walk right in and take that position of loving caretaker, and it's just going to blow their mind, because it blew my mind when I first came to the reality of God, when I called on the name of Jesus and experienced like a deliverance from demonic oppression. It was powerful. It was like, like this is amazing. Like, you do love me, you do care about me. If I call on the name, if I have faith in you, I'm healed. People don't have that. So I think when they suddenly have this experience with the extraterrestrial, it's going to be, my God, my Lord and my God.
Yeah.
That's what they'll end up saying.
Wow. And before you comment, Eric, just a second, I want to thank Ms. Ramos and Jonathan for your super chat. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. Go ahead, Eric. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, you described the kind of the end of the movie Contact, if anybody's seen it, because they go in and it's supposedly Jodie Foster's dead. It's alien posing as a dead relative, which predictive programming, probably, but basically he goes through this thing, and one of the lines that he says is, the only thing that makes the darkness or the emptiness bearable is each other, speaking of like other alien civilizations. And so that just, what you just said made me think of that film, which of course was made with an agenda, pushing a narrative. I thought it was interesting in the hearing. Can you play it again?
Yeah. This is just the last part, or do you want the whole thing?
You know what? Never mind.
Okay.
I'll just, if it's in another clip, then fine. No, I got like halfway through the video. It was a long day. Anyways, where he's talking about like this is going to be, is this the clip where he said it's going to be in peer-reviewed journals and like not on the blog, in blogs and stuff like that? Is that this clip?
Yeah.
He just said
so okay, thank you. So I thought that's interesting for a few reasons, because anybody who's been paying attention the past 2-3 years has heard a lot about peer-reviewed studies and peer-reviewed journals and things like that. And when peer-reviewed stuff actually started, it was just people publishing in journals, and you could witness the debate, in the journal, people going back and forth, and it wasn't like this settled definitive thing. And colleges in particular, academia, it's like many institutions and universities and the people writing these articles, they get their jobs and they get funding and things like that from being published. So they're all winking and nodding at each other, and the whole peer review process that's supposed to subject hypotheses to like this rigor and this intense scrutiny it seems that it's turned into this just kind of like rubber stamp where it's like, okay, I'm going to publish this, don't look at it too hard, just publish it so it can get my name in it, and then when you go to publish something, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so people have this, I think, this view of like, oh, it's in a peer-reviewed journal, or so, there's scientific consensus, and it's like, well, there was scientific consensus when Copernicus was saying that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, and for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. People are one-upping each other in the chat for super chats tonight. That's super cool. Byron, thank you so much for your super chat. Really do appreciate it. What we're gonna do, I thought it was interesting in this that he mentioned in this that they can't find any evidence of extraterrestrials. We've heard that over and over again, and I think there's a reason for that. They don't see them coming down, but they're already here. Well, we know why they're already here, because the Christian viewpoint in this is that they're absolutely not from another planet. They are here. They are hiding. They are demonic, and I think that's fascinating. Let's go on and see exactly what these things look like when they do appear in this next clip. This is where it gets really interesting. Here we go.
So one of the things that Arrow does is high integrity analysis, as I've said. This chart represents the trend analysis of all the cases in Arrow's holdings, right, to date. What you'll see on the left is a histogram of all of our reported sightings as a function of altitude. So most of our sightings occur in the 15 to 25,000 foot range, and that is ultimately because that's where a lot of our aircraft are. On the far right upper corner, you'll see a breakout of the morphologies of all of the UAP that are reported. Over half, about 52% of what's been reported to us are round orb spheres. The rest of those break out into all kinds of different other shapes. The gray box is essentially there's no data on what its shape is. Either it wasn't reported or the sensor did not collect it. The bottom map is a heat map of all reporting areas across the globe that we have available to us. What you'll notice is that there is a heavy, what we call collection bias, both in altitude and in geographic location. That's where all of our sensors exist. That's where our training ranges are, that's where our operational ranges are, that's where all of our platforms are. In the middle, what we have done is reduce the most typically reported UAP characteristics to these fields, mostly round, mostly 1 to 4 meters, white, silver, translucent, metallic, 10,000 to 30,000 feet, with apparent velocities from stationary to Mach 2. No thermal exhausts usually detected. We get intermittent radar returns, we get intermittent radio returns, and we get intermittent thermal signatures. That's what we're looking for and trying to understand what that is. Next slide.
All right, let's pause it there for a second. Fascinating. Wow, so much data right here. I think that what you said earlier, if you look at that pie graph at the top right, what are they normally seeing? It's a round orb type thing. Sometimes metallic, sometimes white, like a Tic Tac. And they've said that over and over again. But the majority of these things that they see are these round, white, or metallic looking balls. And actually, we're going to see one in a newly released video coming up here. But and another thing I found was fascinating, and this is a little revealing, is that they all stay around 15, 20, 25,000 feet in the air, which is just below about where planes fly, and this is what I think was the revealing part. I don't know if I would tell everyone publicly, this is where all of our training is. You know, I mean, you guys have been in the military. I don't know if the military gets on and says, hey, by the way, all of our sea vessels, this is where we go to train. I think it would tell the enemy, if you want to go watch us and learn our tactics, go over here. Here's the heat map of where we train. Here's where all our sensors are, on the edges of the United States. I'm sure they have other sensors elsewhere, but that's where all their sensors are? What, do you really want to reveal all this stuff?
He didn't really give any I mean, it was more of a general, if you look at the United States, the coasts are where you have bases. I mean, that's where else are you going to keep ships? So, yeah. It's pretty, he didn't give like any op areas or anything like that are, you know, on a more granular, more defined, like this is the Latin long that, you know, that's, but, you know, I mean, if you've lived around a military, you don't have to be in the military to live near a military base, and you can see the planes flying around.
That's
or,
true.
You know, if you're in, you know, for example, Everett, Washington, and you see the ship pull out, I mean, you can see it. It's not classified. You see it happening. You know what I mean? True. So, you know that they're doing so. But yeah, it's just the thing that I pulled from his slide is the intermittent contact. So for something to be intermittent contact, obviously that seems to be like a compilation and kind of analysis of just general, all of the UAPs that they've analyzed. But for intermittent contact, to me, indicates either something to do with weather, for example, like radar. If you're flying through clouds, or rain can interfere with radar, that could cause intermittent contact. But on a clear day, if something is within your radar range and you have a straight line of sight, there shouldn't be intermittent contact. So that indicates something is going on. Either there's a unique characteristic of whatever it is that is causing that, or they have some type of device that would cause that, or an equipment malfunction. But I just thought it made me think, because we know these are fallen angels. We know that they're playing a game. And so intermittent contact, it's like teasing to me. That's what I thought.
Right, absolutely. And before you comment, Matthew, wow, I can't believe I almost forgot your name. Isn't that terrible?
Doesn't surprise me, Brad.
Before you comment, I just want to say thank you, Natasha. I appreciate everything you do, and the super chat tonight. Thank you so much. I love it. I feel like I'm on an auction right now. You guys are awesome.
It's most eligible bachelor.
Most eligible what?
Except none of us are bachelors. Is that what they do? Like they auction people off out of
that's what it is.
One of those. Bachelor auction. There you go.
What were you going to say, Matthew?
I think it's interesting that we see the most commonly reported shape is the orb, because that's what we've been able to deduce through our research. Joe Jordan, friend of the show from CE4 Research, he says that is the most commonly reported shape that he encounters whenever he's going through these cases. So that seems to be it. I think it was the second one was anomalous like signatures or something. I can't quite remember, but it's something along the lines of things showing up on the radar that don't make sense.
Yeah, on the pie graph you're talking about?
Yeah, on the pie graph.
The 1/4 quarter at the bottom was just everything else, I think. And so the most common was that half right there, and then it goes down to much smaller slices. So, yeah, it's evident that the round ones are the bit most. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting that's not the most common depicted in popular media. So I think that's significant somehow.
Yeah, because what we see in the Bible, that these things are depicted as bright, glowing beings. And oftentimes when you see them in depicted art, they've got like this aura around them, this round, almost bubble-like thing. You know, I did a podcast with a popular evangelist. He's got 4 shows on TV. His name is Doug Batchelor. And he says, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if God created these beings with a bubble around them so they could, you know, go places and light up and be in dark areas. I mean, God thinks of everything. He doesn't need technology because he builds it into us. Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion, though. Let's not go there yet. But do you want to go on to the next clip? I think we should jump right into it.
Well, let's not ignore, though, another characteristic that
Sure.
it was translucent too.
Yes.
That's very weird, I think. I don't know any translucent drones, but it's there. I mean, it's in like the majority of the sightings. It's including that characteristic, so that has to count for something.
Well,
I
yeah,
just wanted to throw that in.
the concept of maybe the concept of the ethereal or, you know, interdimensional, as they would say in sci-fi, where I know there's been Star Trek episodes where people are like out of phase. There's one Next Generation episode like that with Geordi and I think it was Ensign
And
Rogue.
Data.
Like they get thrown it. Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah.
So they're just out of phase enough, but so, you know, and then when they start to come back in phase, they have that translucent, like ghost-like, what we would consider spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I also think of like cloaking technology too. In sci-fi, you often see like whenever someone's cloaked visually and you can't see them, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, like their cloaking is wearing off. It's like you see like an outline of them and you can see through them, and then it's like they solidify.
It's almost like this is the way science tries to prove that it's not the Bible, that it's not the angels. And Hollywood is kind of hand in hand with them, going, yeah, look, science, it's out of phase. I mean, truth be known, out of phases we can't prove yet. I'm going to say yet because it's possible. Maybe we might prove that someday, but we can't prove that's even a thing. All we know is these things appear and they disappear. We don't know where they go or how they're doing it, but the only reference that people have to this, other than making it up in their mind, is the Bible, and I think that's comment worthy.
Let's submit the Bible to one of those peer-reviewed. See what it's talking about with a little card for Starfall.
So anyway, let's jump into the next point here. This is fascinating. Here we go.
So I'm going to walk you through two cases that we've declassified recently. This first one is an MQ-9 in the Middle East, observing that blow up, which is an apparent spherical object via EO sensors. Those are not IR. If you want to go ahead and click that and play it. You'll see it come through the top of the screen. There it goes. And then the camera will slew to follow it. You'll see it pop in and out of the
bottom right
field of view there.
Bottom right.
This is essentially all of the data
Bottom
we
right.
have associated with this event from some years ago. It is going to be virtually impossible to fully identify that.
I bet.
Just based off of that video. Now, what we can do and what we are doing is keeping that as part of that group of 52% to see what are the similarities, what are the trends across all of these, do we see these in a particular distribution, do they all behave the same or not?
So this is what looks like to me. I mean, obviously it's out of focus. Maybe that's a lens thing, or maybe that's just because it is. They often call these things, when people have these experiences, excuse me, they say that these things are fuzzy or out of focus and they're not sure why, or it's got like bugs flying around it. We had, I forget her name, Arne, on this program a while back, Lee Arne, and she said when she saw Bigfoot, which is another fascinating story, she said it was almost like there was a bunch of bees flying around. You can't really see it. It was there, but it wasn't there. It was very fuzzy. And so it could be that this is a lens thing. It could be that you're just seeing something very fuzzy because that's how they want you to see them. I'm talking they as in these spiritual entities. But what it looked like to me was a very silver round ball bearing. And they were using EO sensors, and it was a, what do you say, MQ9 object, whatever that means. But he's
a Reaper drone.
Reaper? Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's what that means. Is that MQ9?
Pretty sure it's a Reaper. Yeah, I'll look it up. Hang on, just to make sure that.
Okay, yeah. And so they saw these things, and he's going over 2 declassified videos right now. This is one of them. He says, we haven't identified this, so right now it could be a UAP. But right now it's just unidentified. And the next one he's going to talk about is another unclassified one, but this one has been identified, and he's going to go over how they know it's identified. But go ahead. What are you going to say, Eric? Did you?
No, yeah, it was an MQ-9 Reaper.
Okay. Any thoughts?
So it's just armed propeller prop-driven drone.
Yeah, the shape of that one is interesting. Yeah, like the spherical shape. I don't know if you're going to include this clip, but someone had posted in the Discord like a recent sighting. I think it must have been from an airplane or something, maybe the cockpit of an airplane. But it was just kind of like, you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Brad?
Yeah.
Do you have that? Do you have that clip queued up for this show?
I don't have it queued up. I should have. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
And the reason why I don't usually include those is because usually sometimes they come out later as, oh, this was a 3D animation, and then it discredits the whole channel. But
right, we don't want to do that. Yeah, but I thought it was well, when I saw it, my mind went to, it kind of looks like one of those nylon party balloons, like the circular ones filled with helium when they got away and whatever. But this is over in the Middle East, so I don't know how many nylon party balloons people are filling up over there. So it's also, I guess it's the setting too that kind of I find interesting, because you do hear that over battlefields and in wars there are sightings of these UAPs, UFOs, and even dating all the way back to the Roman era. There was a well-documented sighting by a legion. They said they saw something that resembled their shield in the sky that was flying across.
That's true.
So I think it's an interesting idea that wherever blood is being shed and you have these high tensions, we know that they feed off of trauma, and it's hard to think of anything quite as traumatic as a war zone. Makes sense that they would make an appearance there.
Yeah, and it was Mylar. I think Mylar balloon is what you were looking for. I think you said nylon.
Mylar, yeah. I did say nylon. Thank you.
That would be a weird balloon, though, if it was made out of nylon. So
yeah, it would be.
But I think... go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I thought it was fascinating. I completely forgot what I was going to say, so go for it.
I was going to say, it's not just the shape that interests me, it's the size. So I don't know that we were given any altitude information on that Reaper, and like how far, what the distance between it and like the ground was, and because this thing was, going between it and the ground. But the idea that these are somehow like physical or military or some type of advanced foreign nation technology, it's like technology of that kind is built for a purpose. So if you're designing a weapon, for instance, you have characteristics, or even an aircraft or whatever it is. It's like, okay, we have this design criteria. It has to go this far. It has to carry this payload at this speed. And then that basically informs, and you come up with something in a size that can do all of that. And so these UAPs from different accounts, especially reading like Joe Jordan's book or, Jason December's accounts, like these things can be like several hundred yards in size, like football fields, these UAPs. And then they can be like this small, tiny little ball, for what purpose? You know what I mean? If you see a large commercial jet, you can tell it's big, it's bulky, you can tell that's meant to carry something, whereas like a small drone, it's like that has a specific mission, and that's the reason it's that size. What would be the reason for all of these different sizes of UAPs, unless it was for our benefit? They were being specifically displayed to us in ways, appropriate to each situation that's going to catch our eye or make us think of something.
Yeah. And in this report, they say they're between 1 and 4 meters. 4 meters is what, like 12 feet? I'm going to use my fingers to count.
Yeah.
So, but you're right.
Something maybe a person could get fit into, but not like a 1 meter craft. That'd be pretty cramped, so.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
And it's just cruising too, with no discernible means of propulsion. The thing's just going
up to Mach 2. I think we did another show where these things have been seen going even faster. I forget what the speed was, but it was fast, typically fast as an airliner. I'm going to use miles per hour because that's where this United States man is from. It's about 500 to I think 900 is what they typically match them at. But really, really interesting, because I don't know if they're What's the limit of these things? We don't know. And I think that's the huge draw, because number one, these things live a lot longer than we do. They're smarter than we are, and they are able to, they have limitations we don't know about. So we're at a disadvantage. And so that's the only thing we need to understand, is that we need a savior. We need God. And there's nothing else we can do. Because if these things are, and this was the point I was going to make, but I forgot. The point is absolutely that we need to, don't let me forget again. What is it? We need to, number one, rely on God. And what is it? I'm gonna need some vitamins or something, because I'm getting old here.
Well, you got the important one, rely on God.
Yeah,
we didn't forget that. That's all you really need.
We rely on God, and we rely on God.
I'm getting old.
Yeah, you're right though about the angels being so much smarter than us and having this one up on us. It's funny. I like to listen to a guy named Walter Veith. He does a weekly show, and every once in a while, because he examines current events, he goes over some Bible topics too, but the current event shows are really good, because he'll just take like a bunch of the news articles and they'll tie them together and present them in such a way that's just really thoughtfully done. But he'll step back occasionally. He has this co-host, Martin. He'll be like, Martin, this plan is so brilliant. It's so complex. There's no one else that could be behind this but Satan. It's just like, he'll just lay it out, because you see all the different, the gears are in motion and they're turning. And that's what we're up against. But we have the ultimate power on our side. It's like when you got Jesus in your corner, I don't need anyone else. He's more than enough for the job.
And that's what Joe Jordan brings out, is that we can overcome this, and it's been proven that it can be overcome just by calling out Jesus' name. And I think that's huge. That's huge, because without Christ, we have nothing. Even though he sees us, our small insignificant self, in the middle of this universe, but God sees us as something huge and wonderful, and that so much that God died for. That blows my mind. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic here. This is the next one. You ready? Here we go.
So I'm going to walk you through two cases that. Next slide. This particular event, South Asia MQ-9, looking at another MQ-9, and what's highlighted there in that red circle is an object that flies through the screen. Unlike the previous one, this one actually shows some really interesting things that everyone thought was truly anomalous to start with. First of all, it's a high-speed object that's flying in the field of regard of two MQ-9s. Second, it appears to have this trail behind it, all right, which at first blush you would think that looks like a propulsion trail. In reality, if you want to play the first slide, we'll show you what that looks like in real time, our first video. So we're looking at that. There it goes. Why don't you play it again and then pause it halfway through? Right there. All right, if you might be able to see that trail there behind it. That's actually not a real trail. That is a sensor artifact. Each one of those little blobs is actually a representation of the object as it's moving through. And later in the video, as the camera slews, that trail actually follows the direction of the camera, not the direction of the object. We pulled these apart frame by frame. We were able to demonstrate that that is essentially a readout overlap of the image. It's a shadow image, right? It's not real. Further, if you later follow this all the way to end, it starts to resolve itself into that blob that's in that picture in the top left, right? And if you squint, it looks like an aircraft because it actually turns out to be an aircraft. Go ahead and put that on. So you'll see the tail sort of pop out there. And so what you're looking at is, this is in the infrared, this is the heat signature off of the engines of a commuter aircraft that happened to be flying in the vicinity of where those two MQ-9s were at. Why am I showing you this? So the first one that I showed you, we don't have resolved yet, right? That is an unresolved case we are still studying. This one we can resolve, but this is the kind of data that we have to work with and the type of analysis that we have to do, which can be quite extensive when you have to pull these apart frame by frame. Further, we're now matching all of this with the models of all of those imaging sensors so that I can say, I can recreate this. I can actually show how the sensor is going to respond. All of these sensors don't necessarily respond the way you think they do, especially out in the world and in the field.
So it's interesting because he was showing that and he was seeing, hey, look, there's a trail behind it. Maybe that's the exhaust, but it turns out it's just sensor anomalies. And because when he moved the camera, he didn't show it to you, but when you moved the camera, you actually saw the sensor data go. And I've seen that before. When you take cameras out and you film stuff, sometimes the compression even of the file causes artifacts in it. And compression, I mean the codec, when you try to make a file that's raw data and compress it down to a very small thing, you're going to have issues with it. And that might be part of the issue that they're experiencing. And so turns out this was a real plane. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, artifacts are nothing new to sensors. I mean, you deal with them all the time, no matter what you're doing. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, recording with a camera. Certainly, they pop up and they could be misinterpreted as one thing, but I guess that's why we have Arrow to go through and do that hard work and debunk it, which I'm grateful for. There's a lot of things that we need to get to the bottom of. It's the stuff that they can't resolve that I think is interesting, and that they admit there's stuff that there's flat out like they have no idea about. So, I mean, yeah, it was nice of him to show. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, there's one thing to keep in mind about these congressional hearings is that these senators or whoever's on this committee or even maybe all of Congress is making a show of trying to get to the bottom of this. The people that are high enough up, they already know. So this is like a whole, like what I've noticed from, I watch a lot of congressional hearings. I listen to them because,
Eric is a fun guy.
Whatnot. Yeah, it's great. But not much seems to come of them. They're good for sound bites. They're good for news stories or maybe to get things on the record for a later date. But it's just mostly people talking, and that's, if you're into that sort of thing, then watch congressional hearings. Knock yourself out.
Is that C-SPAN? Is that what that is?
Sure. Well, I'm sure C-SPAN is one of them. There's other, they broadcast it. But anyways, the point is, it's like, whose benefit is this whole discussion for? Because the people in the military who this guy probably reports to or he knows, like people like Jim Semivan or people who, whether they're CIA or military intelligence community, they already know that these are demonic entities.
Yeah.
And they know the accounts of people who have messed around with them, who've had encounters. They know about the Bledsoes and all that stuff. And so I just get the thought, like, who is this hearing really for?
Right. Yeah. It's to tickle some ears. Go ahead for it.
It's to frustrate all of the people who are the truth seekers, because they desperately want there to be a little something that's thrown out there to blow the minds of the people, and they want to be able to have this concrete, I suppose, evidence. They want to have a basis for their beliefs, because a lot of people who don't have a biblical understanding of this, they're laughed at in most cases because it's like, well, it's fun to speculate about. I think we have a lot more substance when we can point to the Bible and say, well, take a look at this. This is a spiritual deception, and this is why. So they kind of need that congressional hearing. They need the big one. I think a lot of people are waiting on that, but it will never come. Disclosure will never come from the government. And I think you're right, even about Dr. Kirkpatrick knowing more than he lets on, because maybe you remember this, but several weeks ago, there was that article that made the rounds on the news headlines, and it was like what we're seeing is the UFOs could be probes from a mothership.
I know. I saw that.
You remember that?
I remember
well,
that.
Did you know that guy, Dr. Kirkpatrick, is the co-author of that article?
This guy that we're watching?
That we're watching right now. Yeah.
Wow, that's a piece of information I didn't know. So this guy is the guy that believes that, oh yeah, that mothership, it could be a mothership. What was it? Muamua? That the thing that flew by?
Yeah, I know he wasn't the only person contributing to it, so I don't know necessarily his role, but certainly he's savvy. He understands the idea behind it.
Wow.
He's making some type of a contribution to it. But yeah, that's
surprising.
It's verifiable.
Well, let's go for it.
Oh, I was going to say that so the whole idea of the artifacts, the demons have been shown to be able to manipulate things, it seems, on a molecular or even atomic level. Like they can turn lights on and off. You know, they can
stop
make
electricity.
Cars stop electricity, turn nuclear missiles on and off in their silos and start launch sequences and then just abort them. So they have some type of control even over our sensors. So whether we can see them with the naked eye or not, I mean, they could be a thing where they're invisible to the eye, but they're showing up on maybe infrared or whatever. However they appear is how they want to appear. And it made me think of AI and the whole deepfake thing is because we're rapidly approaching, I think, and this is just me, but a point where we're not going to be able to trust. And it used to be before you see a video on TV or something like that, it's like, oh, that was the truth because it's a video and how could they fake that? But you know, then it was, okay, they're airbrushing photos and things like that. So it's like, we can't trust photos. Oh, that's photoshopped. But now it's getting to the point where even video and with demons, even things people see with their own eyes, you know, we talk about great deception, whether they come out of the sky and pretend to be aliens or somebody's walking on earth doing miracles. People, and it made me think of Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. Because people, if you try to understand this from a purely human perspective and we try to use our senses, we're gonna get tripped up somehow. Because how many times did Christ say, "Do not be deceived" when he's talking about right before he returns? There's going to be visual deceptions, audio deceptions, deceptions of sensors, deceptions of people's eyeballs. We just have to trust God and know what His Word says.
Do not be deceived. You can't trust you have to rely on what you know, not what you feel. And that's the mantra that I hear over and over and over again, is what we should know today. I mean, don't rely on what I hear so many people say, and I'm not going to get off on this rabbit trail, but I feel that I should tell you this, or I just feel that ... always sends a red flag up in my head. I don't like saying that. Hey, let's get to the facts. And what does the Bible say? So that's fascinating. Here's the next clip. Let's check this out. Here we go.
Can you just give us some raw numbers of how many UAPs you've analyzed, how many have been resolved, and sort of in what buckets, and then how many are still left to be resolved? Just an update from your January public report where it was 366 or something, and about 150 were balloons, and about 24 were drones. You know, just give us an update if you have one.
Sure. So as of this week, we are tracking over a total of 650 cases. Now, the report in January basically said about half of the ones at that time, about 150, were likely balloon-like or something like that. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they're resolved.
So that's interesting to me. I'm just going to cut it right there just for a second, because 2 years ago, they were saying they were looking into 144 of these things. And now they're looking into 650. That's 4.5 times the amount that they had before. And these are the ones that are reported. They don't even have the portal open to the public, so the public can report these things yet. They're working on that still. And so it's interesting that these things have over quadrupled in these 2 years. And maybe that's just because, you know, they can submit them and now people know and the word's getting out. Or maybe, just maybe, there's an uptick in a deception coming. Don't know. We'll see. What do you guys think?
We didn't catch. I don't think you played the full opening comments from this hearing, but it was something about, basically they don't have the funding and the resources. Essentially, the whoever's in charge has kind of backburnered it, and so it's taken senators writing to them for them to finally get them to comply with just what's already written. So I don't know how much of that is true, but if it is true, and then there is this uptick, then they're not. It sounds like they're not remotely equipped to handle what they've got, let alone, like you said, stuff from the public. Because remember, it was a while ago we did a video and we showed it was another congressional hearing where somebody was asking them about, do you get stuff from the public? And it's like, well, no, this is just stuff that's reported through official channels. So I don't know if that's the case here, but yeah, it's certainly not taking into account. And I don't know who could keep up with that many UAP reports. I mean, if they had to go to the public.
I mean, Chris Bledsoe's Instagram alone would give them enough material to go off of for a while. So, yeah, no, I agree with you, man. Especially considering how much stuff is fabricated just for the sake of views and, kind of like clickbaity stuff. And then I'm sure someone's going to see it and they're going to say, oh, this is worthy of investigation. And they send it in. And it's like, man, I've seen this one 12 times already. Stop sending it in.
Probably like that plane one that people could probably see. I see it all over social media. The where they're flying along in that plane, like the one you just mentioned, where that mylar balloon flies past, or the silver one. I almost said nylon again, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all right.
All right, here we go. Next clip. We got to get through this. Here we go. Check this out.
I wanted just to follow up on the filters for surveillance. Outside observers have speculated that DoD sets filters on certain sensors to eliminate objects that are moving really fast or slow, because what we are looking for militarily are conventional aircraft and missiles. UAP that doesn't fit into these programs would thereby be weeded out and never noticed. This speculation was proven to be true during the UAP incidents over North America, where DoD publicly acknowledged that we were able to start seeing these UAPs only when we opened up these filters. Obviously, our military operators cannot be overloaded with objects that are not conventional aircraft or missiles. Can you nonetheless make sure that the raw data is being captured and subsequently processed, so that your office knows what's really out there? And is that going to cost money? Will you expect to pay for that money out of Aero's budget?
One of the key tenets that we're trying to do in our science plan is understand what those signatures are. So we get all the raw, for example, radar data prior to the scrubbing and filtering to allow it to enter into our weapons systems and our detection systems. We are now taking all that data and cross-correlating it to what pilots are saying they're seeing or other observations from other operators. What that allows us to do is then see if there are any signatures in that data that I can pull out, generate what we'll call automatic target recognition algorithms that allow us to then use that signature associated with a observed UAP, whatever that UAP may be. We will then make those recommendations of what those changes should be back to the department. So the Deputy Secretary had asked me last October to make those recommendations. What changes do we need to make to radars, to platforms, to detection systems and algorithms, to pull on those algorithms and make those changes?
So I included this clip because it kind of proves a point. I've been saying over and over again that they absolutely, after the balloon incident from China, they started reducing their filters on these things. Now, they're calling them filters, they're calling them opening them up, they're calling them speeding up or slowing down these radar systems, whatever they call it. Basically, they're allowing them to be able to see smaller objects that they normally filtered out because there's probably a lot of them. And they're probably seeing these things because these things are here and they're real. And they're like, we just want to see our planes. We don't know what's going on here, but let's just filter them out because they're not causing any trouble. And now they're saying, okay, balloons are in the air, so let's see these things. And it's going to cause them to want to figure out what these things are now with all the raw data. And I think this office, even though he doesn't want to admit it, he's going to have to come to the conclusion eventually that there's something we can't figure out, but then where do you go? So that's the fascinating part about this clip. What did you guys notice?
Yeah, raw data is interesting because you can do a lot with it even after the fact. So one of the interesting things about, and actually it was in that Lex Friedman podcast that I just watched today that I mentioned about AI, one of them mentioned about how maybe the raw data already has been collected. I forget what problem they were talking about, but the comment was made, maybe the raw data is already there and we just need the tool to analyze it. And so that might be interesting. Some new technology might be developed or something like that that will allow them to take the data that they already have and essentially view it through a different filter, and maybe all this other new UAP stuff will pop out or something like that it was there the whole time. We just couldn't see it because we didn't have the tool. So,
I think what we're going to see, and this will be surprising, is if they hook this up to AI, and AI told us, this is nothing we've seen before. This is what this possibly could be. You're being visited by extraterrestrials. I mean, anything, right? I mean, of course, they don't want it to say Bible. So as Elon Musk said, we heard in the Discord today or this week, they're teaching AI to lie. And so it could come as anything. And that's why Elon Musk is starting his own AI systems and not Microsoft and Google anymore. It's going to be not Microsoft, Google, and Elon Musk. So,
and we all know that we can trust the guy who dressed up as Satan's champion for Halloween to give us a real, truthful AI. Thank you, Elon.
All right, here we go. Unless you have any comments, here's the next one.
My last question is about the academic community. Can you give us an update on sort of how you collaborate with the academic community and whether how the independent study being done by NASA complements AARO's work?
Sure. Two questions, so I'm going to try to make it quick. In 1979, Carl Sagan said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
There's Carl Sagan again.
I would go one step further, and I would say extraordinary claims require not only extraordinary evidence, but extraordinary science. And so how do you do that? You do that with the scientific method, right? And so as AARO is developing and implementing its science plan, it has to do so grounded in a solid foundation of scientific theory across the entire range of hypotheses that have been presented for what UAP are. That range spans adversary breakthrough technology on one hand, known objects and phenomena in the middle, all the way to the extreme theories of extraterrestrials. All of that has physics-based signatures associated with it, whether it's theoretical from the academic community, known from things like hypersonic weapons, or adversary breakthrough technologies, as we've talked about before, or the known objects that we have to go measure. The idea is across that entire range, you have to come up with peer-reviewed scientific basis for all of it. The academic community plays a very big role on the one end of the spectrum, the intelligence community on the other end of the spectrum, and then measurement in the middle. Once I have those signatures identified in validated, peer-reviewed documents, then I have something to point to for all that data. Because all that data is going to match one of those signatures, right? And then I can go, well, it's that and not that, or it's that. And that helps us go through all that. Where NASA comes in and the study that they're doing, which I'm supporting, is really looking at the unclassified data sources that might be used to augment our classified data sources to understand if there's a signature there we can pull on. So very similar to the radars, but civil capabilities. So for example, we have a lot of climate science satellites, for example, that look at Earth. Lots of them. How many of those is the data valuable in seeing these kinds of objects? The challenge in that is those platforms don't necessarily have the resolution you need. So if you remember the slide I put up there with the trends, the size of the objects we're looking for are typically reported to be 1 to 4 meters. Well, the resolution of many of the climate science civil satellites is much larger than that, which means you'd have a hard time picking out something that's smaller than a pixel on the imagery on the data. That's not to say all of it's not useful, and there are ways of pulling through that data and going through. That is what NASA is focused on right now. So what are some other data sources that could be used? In addition, things like open source and crowdsourcing of data. We're exploring public-private partnerships, ma'am, as you know, we've talked about in the past, to look at, is there a way to smartly crowdsource additional data that might be useful to augment some of my classified sources? And what does that look like? And how would we do it so that we're not overwhelmed by, everybody who wants to take a picture of everything?
So 2 things he said here were interesting. One thing was that he says, all these things, even from the extreme idea of extraterrestrials, which I agree with, it is an extreme idea, but he says they all have signatures. Well, the problem is that if it's a consciousness, which every UFOologist believes it's some kind of consciousness, and every Christian believes it's a consciousness. I mean, if you believe that it's demonic, then it's manipulative. It can manipulate, especially if it's demonic. So, and we've seen, even if you don't believe it's demonic, we've seen these things are manipulative. So whether you believe of what it is or what it's not, it could portray itself to have different characteristics, just like as seen in the report. Sometimes it gives out things that are on radar. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it broadcasts things on the gigahertz radio signals. I'm a ham radio operator. For those who also are hams, look me up, K9GGG. GGG as in goat, God, or whatever it is. And so it's fascinating. And so if it's manipulating those elements already, then what in the world are we expecting to see? Anything. And number 2, the second point is that I think he's looking at this saying, hey, we're going to outsource this. We're going to get NASA involved, and then we're going to find it through other means too. Potentially, I've seen other people, even in our that have discords out there that have open source on GitHub. GitHub's a popular place to put source code that say we're going to watch the skies, and here's some hardware you can have at your house to watch the sky through a fisheye lens, and it all is sent to one location so we can analyze it and see if it's a UAP. This is what's happening right now. People are getting involved, and they're trying to help figure out what this is. It's a growing thing. This is not something that's dwindling and getting smaller. We are exploding with trying to figure out what this is. Not only NASA, getting NASA involved, getting the Pentagon involved, getting the Senate involved, getting regular people involved, MUFON involved. I mean, it's all over the news. And we need to, as Christians, be vigilant about this. We need to talk to people about this and realize that this is a sign of the times. So help me. Help me get some software so we can monitor this thing in the news, because this is very important. Patreon.com/strangenormal. Let's do this. Let's figure this out. Shameless plug. It's important. Won't you guys agree?
Oh, I do agree. And I think that the fact that it's everybody thinking about it, that's the whole wonder aspect of this. I think what it comes down to is they need people to be primed. They need people to be in the right mindset. if you have everyone sitting around from the congressional table to the kitchen table talking about UFO, talking about alien life and getting excited about it, and maybe even pointing towards that as a hopeful thing, because, newsflash, if you look at all the other things that are in the news aside from the UFO, UAP news, we've got economic collapse.
Yep.
We've got famines on the horizon. We've got World War III. We've got, it's all doom and gloom everywhere. And I would say that the only shred of hope anyone could glean from looking at the news cycle would be, well, what are these mysterious things in the sky? Sure would be nice if they'd come down and tell us it's gonna be all right. And then boom, you just have it happen. It's perfect, really.
And just like Joe Rogan said in the last program, we talked about him. He said, man, I wish these aliens would just come down here, and I wish they would tell us what's going on and tell us what to do, and make, almost like this kingly government to order us around. And it says it's absolute chaos. Man, that guy, he drives me nuts. Hey, thank you, Meredith Poole. Meredith is one of our Patreon members already. She just gave a super chat. Thank you so much. Wow, a big super chat. Let's do this. Strange normal, she says, with 2 exclamation points. Thank you so much, Meredith. We do appreciate that, and we are going to do this. Let's get it going. What do you think, Eric?
Something along the lines of what you said, Matt, about we know there's a legal system, that God has a legal system. There's spiritual rules of engagement, but we don't have a clear understanding of what exactly those are. You don't have to be praying to Satan to open a door for demons to come into your life. So maybe, also putting it out there and getting it more mass acceptance, people will start thinking, man, I wish I could see a UFO. Maybe that's enough for you to have an experience that you don't want to have. I don't know. That's not something, I try to avoid thoughts like that, and I try to have a relationship with Christ so that if I do have an experience, that I can call on him and he can, save me, because that's what I need. But, like you said, it's all about priming, and not just to accept the what they have coming, but also to open doors that they can then come through and then exert more influence in people's lives directly.
Fascinating. I got a story, but I'm going to save it till next time, because I think I can illustrate that perfectly. But I got to think it out a little bit before I want to tell the whole public.
Is this like a parable?
No, well, this is
like a parable or a true story?
A true story.
Yeah, just leave us with that. Oh, I've got this great thing, but I'm not going to tell it to you tonight.
I know. I'm exercising my.
All right, bye, everybody. I love you.
It's a secret only for the illuminated ones on the Discord channel. And
wow.
You got to be part of the club.
What are you saying? Oh, my goodness. Oh, man. And this has been
We'll tell this story next time, folks. We'll hold them to it. Everybody in chat. I know. Well.
Yeah. There's some ideas that I have for the channel that I think would be very interesting to all of us, to prove some points that these things are demonic. The problem is I voiced, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what I was planning to do, because I'm not sure if I should yet, but and it wasn't anything bad. But you're right. Doing some things can open doors that I don't want to open. And so I was thinking, well, we can do this, that, and the other thing, and I can prove that these things are absolutely demonic without getting myself in trouble. And my friend's like, no, not doing that. That's too scary. And so that's as far as I'm going to go.
Are you going to conduct a seance on air?
No.
What's going on?
I'll tell you this. Let me tell you this.
No, let's not. Okay.
I'll tell you this. What's fascinating about this? See, I've gone too far now. So now that you've said that, it sounds like I'm doing something demonic here. No. So this is what happens.
I've got this chicken and this knife.
You're killing me. So I live somewhere in the hills of Tennessee, southern Tennessee, and it's got this nuclear plant nearby. Now, we all know these things hang out near nuclear plants. That's what they say. But I believe that these things are manipulative. They know people like to go see them at these things, and I believe demonic entities are all around. I mean, they try to make people sin. I mean, that's their thing. If they can make people sin, hopefully they can prevent God from coming back and they can rule the planet forever, or whatever they think. You know, this is their manipulation, crazy mind. And so people that go out and see these things, if they were Christian, and they try to view these things, they're going to say, and they usually take this monocular type thing. It's got IR sensors in it. It's military grade. And they go and try to view these things. Either they're going to see one because they've been hoping and dreaming to see these things all the time, or it's going to be manipulative and it's going to be like, nah, I know this guy doesn't believe in this stuff, and they're going to not appear because they can be absolutely manipulative, and they can do that. The problem comes in is, if I were to go and try to say, hey, I'll prove it, we'll never see one because I know the truth about this. Well, who's to say that these things aren't going to come down and they're going to not only become visible, but they're going to scare me and whoever else is out camping with me pretty bad, or worse. And so that's it's, you know, I was like, I'm going to prove that these things can't they can't be visible. Well, no, I'll probably prove they can't be visible, and then they'll probably come down and scare my pants off. That's not a good idea, Brad. So I'm trying to think of ways on this channel to actually prove the point without actually having harm done to myself or others. And it's almost impossible because, you know, we're dealing with an entity here. We're dealing with a personality, invisible person, if you will. And that's the danger. And so I'm open to ideas as long as I'm safe.
I'm not sure that I follow what the plan was going to be, but yeah, be careful around nuclear power plants, Brad. Don't no trespassing or anything like that. Just pointing lasers or releasing balloons or just.
Oh man!
Yeah, we're gonna see that. That's
throwing that out there.
Headline. Man dragged away in cuffs, shouting "Strange normal, strange normal."
Christian activists arrested on nuclear power plant premises trying to disprove the existence of demons or something like
aliens. Yeah, no.
Yeah, aliens.
I said nothing about going into
all
the power
press
plant.
Is good press, I suppose.
He just wants to camp out in sight of the power plant.
No, I own quite a bit of some acreage. Let's put it there, and I'm able to see the power plant from my land, and so that would be the camp point. But the like you said, just the fact that you are going out and saying, "Hey, I'm going to go view these things, and I'm going to prove either they are true or they're not true," or someone that isn't a Christian said that I'm going to go and see them, that opens a door, and so you can't do that, and so that's the danger.
Yeah,
there's also
getting hot water. Spiritually speaking, doing that, I could just say, if you know that something is not good to do, don't do it. You know, it's like, like you wouldn't want to do like the Ouija board, for example, and be like, hey, you know, like I'm Christian, I know that demons influence people through this. They're not going to mess with me if I do this. And then, you know, yeah, I feel like you're almost. I don't know what the correct phrase is, the turn of phrase, but you're tempting fate, essentially, is like what you're doing. And you know, and almost this could be another thing, putting God to the test.
Yep.
And saying, I'm gonna step off the ledge, but God's gonna catch me. It's like, no, you know the ledge is dangerous. We've been over this. You know, God's reasonable, and He's demonstrated the danger of it, so just don't do it. Have faith in that. But it is I appreciate the spirit of what you're saying, certainly wanting to take an active part in raising awareness.
Yeah, and this isn't especially me. This is an idea that came up, and people were, and I was thinking, you know what? Let's talk about this on the channel. Let's because I don't want anybody going out there and getting themselves hurt to try to, I don't know, find a weather. Have you seen those storm chasers? They go out and they get caught in like a tornado or something.
No, that's actually I've wanted to do that for a while. But,
Well, at least the tornadoes aren't conscious, right? So I mean,
Yeah. Or are they?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say.
On the next
You never
episode
know.
of Strange Normal.
Krista Lane Laxton said inviting trouble. I think that might be something along the lines of the turn of phrase you're looking for, Matthew.
Right.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. Yeah, you would definitely be inviting trouble.
Yeah.
So.
Very good, guys. I think we're about done tonight. So I want you guys to stick around if possible. We'll do a little after show just for a few minutes, and we'll kind of go from there. And I'm just going to make a final appeal, unless you guys have any final thoughts. Let's do a final prayer. And what are your final thoughts on that?
On having a prayer?
On anything.
Oh. No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of an abrupt ending for me. I didn't know how many clips you had tonight. So
No,
it's a
that's it.
surprise for me.
And the way YouTube works, you kind of got to abruptly end, otherwise people start
Okay.
dropping off. So this has been a good night. Let's have a little prayer and let's conclude. Father God,
let's
thank
do
you
it.
so much for what you've given us and what you have protected us from. We know that the strange events are going to happen in the future, and you are going to be very protectant of your people. Guide us, deliver us, and help us to stay spotless for you. Love you, God. Amen. See you guys in a minute on the flip side. Folks, thank you so much for watching. Please help us as we try to continue to bring this message forward. I'm going to put some links in the comments below. Please check them out. And I appeal to you to help us as we try to bring this message forward with this new piece of software that can help us search for this truth and bring it before the people. Man, it's going to be absolutely nuts. I'm Brad Burnham. This has been a pure strangeness, absolute normalcy. I'll see you next time on Strange Normal. Thanks for watching this segment. Subscribe to our channel and join us every Thursday night for more daily strange topics and more. Find us on Discord by accessing patreon.com/strangenormal. See you there.